In the heart of Paris, Julien Dubois, a young and ambitious CEO of a thriving tech startup, wakes up naked in the arms of Jane, the unassuming janitor from his office building. What begins as a shocking and disorienting morning unravels into a profound journey of self-discovery as Julien, a man who has prioritized career over connection, confronts the reality of his first intimate experience with someone he barely noticed before. As memories of a chaotic company gala and Jane's quiet heroism surface, Julien grapples with the unexpected tenderness of their night together and the societal barriers that threaten their budding connection. In this engaging chapter, Julien faces a pivotal moment when Jane's estranged brother unexpectedly arrives, forcing him to confront the fragility of their secret bond. What do you think Julien and Jane should do to navigate this sudden intrusion into their fragile new relationship? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more chapters of their story. Julien Dubois awoke to the soft hum of Parisian morning traffic filtering through a cracked window. His head throbbed, a dull reminder of the champagne that had flowed too freely at last night's gala. The room was unfamiliar, a small, tidy space with faded wallpaper and a single bookshelf stuffed with well-worn novels. Sunlight spilled across a threadbare rug, and the scent of fresh coffee lingered in the air. But what jolted him fully awake was a realization that he was stark naked, his body pressed against the warm, steady form of another. Jane, the janitor from his company's sleek Paris headquarters, held him gently, her arms draped protectively around his shoulders. Her dark hair was loose, framing a face he'd only ever glimpsed in passing, always with a mop or a trash bin in hand. Her breathing was calm, her expression serene in sleep, and for a moment Julien couldn't move, caught between shock and a strange sense of comfort. His mind raced to piece together the night before, the gala, the pressure of investor meetings, the dizzying blur of drinks, and then Jane. She'd found him stumbling in the underground car park, barely coherent, and had somehow brought him here. Julien's heart pounded. As the CEO of Tech, a rising star in Europe's tech scene, he'd built his life on control and ambition. Romance had always been a distraction, something for others to indulge in. Yet here he was, in the arms of a woman he'd never truly seen until now, facing the reality that his first time, his first real moment of vulnerability, had been with her. Jane stirred, her hazel eyes fluttering open, and for a moment they simply stared at each other, the weight of the night hanging between them. "Monsieur Dubois," she murmured, her voice thick with sleep and a faint British accent, a remnant of her years in London. "Are you all right?" Julien pulled back slightly, clutching the thin sheet to his chest. Jane, what happened? How did I?" His voice faltered, embarrassment burning his cheeks. Her gaze softened, no trace of judgment in her eyes. "You were in a bad way last night. I couldn't leave you there. You asked me to stay, and I did." Her words were careful, deliberate, and Julien's fragmented memories began to align. Her steady hand catching him as he swayed, her quiet reassurances as he mumbled about the pressures of his role, the loneliness he'd never admitted to anyone. Jane sat up, pulling a worn cardigan around her shoulders, and offered Julien a mug of coffee. The small gesture felt grounding as he sat on the edge of her bed, still wrapped in the sheet. She recounted the previous night with a calm that contrasted his inner turmoil. He'd been disoriented in the car park, she said, slurring about a deal that could make or break Tech. He'd beg her not to call his team or take him to a hospital, terrified of the headlines it would spark. So she brought him to her modest flat in Montmartre, where he'd poured out his fears about failure, about being seen only as his title, about never truly living. "You said you didn't want to be alone," Jane said, her voice soft but steady. You kissed me, Julien, and it felt right. I made sure you were okay with everything." Her words stirred flashes of memory. Her gentle touch, the way she listened without pity, the warmth of her embrace. Julien's throat tightened. He'd always dismissed Jane as just part of the office's background, yet she'd seen him at his most vulnerable and hadn't turned away. He learned, too, that Jane wasn't just a janitor. She was studying art history part-time, working nights to save for her degree, and had a quiet passion for restoring old books. Her life was a world apart from his, yet her dreams were as vivid as his own. "I don't know what to say," Julien admitted, his voice low. It changes everything." Jane nodded, her expression unreadable. "It doesn't have to. I know who you are, Julien. I know what this could mean for you. I won't make trouble." Her selflessness only deepened his confusion. He didn't want to erase this moment, but the reality of their positions, CEO and janitor, wealth and struggle, loomed large. Still, as he dressed in his rumpled gala suit, he couldn't shake the feeling that something profound had begun. Back at Lumiere Tech's glass-walled headquarters, Julien threw himself into work, but Jane lingered in his thoughts. He caught himself watching for her during her evening shifts, her quiet efficiency now a beacon in the sterile office. Their brief glances held a shared secret, electric and dangerous. He found himself taking the stairs to the basement, hoping to catch her alone, and one night he did. They stood in the dim glow of a storage room, the hum of the city outside muffled. "Jane, I can't stop thinking about that night," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what this is, but I don't want it to end." Her eyes searched his, cautious but hopeful. "Julien, this isn't simple. You're my boss. If anyone finds out—" "I know," he said, stepping closer. "But what if we tried in secret just to see where this goes?" Against her better judgment, Jane agreed. They began meeting in hidden corners of Paris. Quiet cafes in Le Marais, late-night walks along the Seine. Julien discovered a side of himself he'd buried under ambition. A man who laughed at Jane's stories of quirky professors, who felt alive sharing crepes from a street vendor. Jane, in turn, opened up about her dream to open a book restoration shop, her love for the tactile history of old pages. Their connection deepened, but the secrecy was a constant strain, each stolen moment shadowed by the risk of discovery. One rainy evening, Julien arrived at Jane's flat with a bottle of wine and a rare smile, eager for their quiet night together. But as Jane opened the door, her face paled. A man stood in her tiny living room, his expression a mix of anger and confusion. He was tall, with Jane's hazel eyes but harder edge, his jacket damp from the rain. "Julien, this is my brother, Liam," Jane said, her voice tight. "He wasn't supposed to be here." Liam's gaze flicked to Julien, taking in his tailored coat and polished shoes. "So, you're the rich bloke sleeping with my sister?" His tone was sharp, protective. "Jane, what the hell is this? You're risking everything for some CEO who'll toss you aside when he's bored." Julien's stomach twisted. He'd known their relationship was fragile, but Liam's words cut deep, echoing his own fears. Jane stepped between them, her voice firm. "Liam, you don't know him. You don't know what this is." "I know enough," Liam snapped. "He's your boss, Jane. You think this ends well? You're smarter than this." The air crackled with tension. Julien wanted to defend their connection, to tell Liam how Jane had awakened something real in him, but the words fell hollow under the weight of their differences. Jane's eyes met his, pleading for understanding, but also for strength. This was the moment their secret could unravel, or solidify into something unbreakable. The confrontation with Liam forced Julien and Jane to confront the reality of their relationship. Over the next week, they met in a quiet park, away from prying eyes, to talk. Jane admitted her fear that Liam's disapproval reflected a truth she'd tried to ignore. Their worlds were too far apart. Julien, however, refused to let go. "I've spent my life chasing success, Jane," he said, taking her hand. "But with you, I feel like I'm actually living. I don't care what Liam or anyone thinks. I want us to figure this out together." Jane's resolve wavered, but her feelings for Julien were undeniable. They agreed to continue, but with more caution, knowing Liam's suspicions could lead to exposure. At work, Julien noticed subtle changes. Jane's lingering glances, the way she'd leave a restored book on his desk with a note tucked inside, quoting Rilke or Baudelaire. These small gestures became their lifeline, a reminder of their bond amidst the corporate chaos. Their careful balance shattered when a tabloid photographer caught them leaving a cafe together. The grainy photo, Julien's arm around Jane, her laughter lighting up the frame, spread across Parisian gossip sites, speculating about the mystery woman, with Lumioteca's golden boy. The board of directors demanded answers. Investors whisper about Julien's focus, and his mother, a formidable matriarch with old money sensibilities, called him home to their estate outside Paris. "You're throwing away our legacy for Janitor?" she said, her voice icy. Julien stood his ground, his voice steady. "She's not just a janitor, maman. She's studying art history. She's brilliant, and she sees me for who I am, not what I own." The public scrutiny intensified, but Julien and Jane faced it together, issuing a joint statement acknowledging their relationship while emphasizing their commitment to professionalism. The response was mixed. Some admired their authenticity. Others saw scandal. But through it all, Jane's quiet strength anchored Julien, and his determination gave her courage. As months passed, Julien and Jane found ways to blend their worlds. He supported her studies, attending her university presentations, while she offered insights into Lumioteca's community outreach, suggesting programs to support local artists. Liam, though still wary, began to see Julien's sincerity, especially after Julien helped fund a community library Jane dreamed of starting. Their love, born in a moment of vulnerability, grew into a partnership that defied expectations. On a quiet evening in Jane's flat, Julien proposed, not with Diamond, but with a rare first edition book she'd always wanted, its pages holding a promise of their shared future. As they planned a simple wedding in a Parisian garden, surrounded by books and art, Julien knew that waking up in Jane's arms that fateful morning had been the start of life he'd never dared imagine, one where love, not ambition, defined his success.